I'm Eric Haas. I'm the director of the doctoral program, and I want to welcome you to this most recent event in a multi-year series of radical educator speakers. Um, the theme for this year is toward a framework for abolitionist leadership. And um, that's going to be the focus for today in our second of three this year. And so I want to give you a little history um, of the series. So we started in 2017-18 with three speakers. For those of you who were here that long ago, it was an amazing inaugural year of the series. And then we missed a year. And then last year, we continued again. And we had three last year, including Farima Pour Khorshid, who was also one of our speakers this year too. So in this latest year, 2020-2021, we have a three event series. And we moved from a format of having individual speakers to having group speakers because we wanted to have more of a conversation between the presenters or our partners who we've invited and us, but also between the panel members themselves. So on January 27th, we had Crystal Lara, Farima Pour Khorshid, who again was here last year, and David Stovall. And we will have our third one in the series on March 17th, where we will be inviting back Crystal Lara, and we will also be inviting Mohammed Khalifa from Ohio State, who's a leading expert on culturally responsive leadership, and begin to have that conversation about how we put this in practice from people who are already examining leadership. And today we are thrilled to have four panelists who are going to really talk about local community on the ground abolitionist work. And we're going to introduce them one by one, and they will give a presentation, then we'll open it up for Q&A. But before we do that, I'm going to hand this over to Dr. Gray, who will give us a little overview of how we got to where we are tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Haas. My name is Mari Gray, and I'm a member of the Abolitionist Leadership Working Group. Schools are not designed for Black and Brown children, for multilingual children, for LGBTQ children, for Muslim, Hindu, and Buddhist children, for poor children, for the children of incarcerated persons, for children with mental health needs, or for children with disabilities. Schools are designed for adult convenience and are based on white, middle class, heterosexual, and Christian norms. Students who do not fit this demographic are disproportionately denied access to educational opportunity because many teachers and educational leaders won't acknowledge anti-Blackness, white supremacy, homophobia, and classism in their schools. And despite all of the information available, educational leaders have not done what it takes to create an educational community that humanizes, educates, prepares, listens to, supports, knows, and loves Black and Brown children. It's that simple. This speaker series focused on abolitionist leadership is the beginning of many years of work toward interrupting the dehumanization, incarceration, and removal of Black, Brown, and historically marginalized students from educational opportunity by learning how to prepare leaders who love, listen to, and organize schools for them. This work is part of an ongoing transformation as a department that began 4 years ago with the development of our social justice stance. Our stance has 5 principles: a belief in the power of transformative language, transformation of systems, empowering minoritized perspectives, community solidarity, and critical reflection. The lens of the 5 principles has sharpened our ability to see the carceral logics and practices that pervade schooling. Practices like video surveillance of students, tardy sweeps that lock students out of buildings and classrooms, the disproportionate isolation of poor and disabled students of color in suspension rooms, and the myriad technologies of school-based policing. We have long been disturbed by these practices, and many of us teach and write about them. But our stance has not called out the everyday carcerality of schooling, and we acknowledge that. And so this year, we are working to understand what dehumanization and carcerality look like in education, to identify what we need to abolish in our own practices and beliefs, to describe what abolition looks like for the educational leader, and to begin the internal work that we need to do. To be clear, we are in a learning stance, and our thought partners during this 3-part series are here to deepen our understanding and provide guidance based on their knowledge, experience, and expertise. For those of you who are new to abolitionism, Dr. David Stovall defines it as seeking to end dehumanization in education. Dr. Bettina Love defines it as the practice of working in solidarity with communities of color while drawing on the imagination, creativity, refusal, remembering, visionary thinking, healing, rebellious spirit, boldness, determination, and subversiveness of abolitionists to eradicate injustice in and outside of schools. Originally, abolition was a movement to end slavery. Early abolitionists included Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, and Sojourner Truth. After emancipation, Blacks lived through a brief period of hope and racial progress before we were plunged into Jim Crow. During that time, abolitionists like Ida B. Wells drew attention to the dehumanization Blacks experienced in lynching and segregation. Our understanding of abolitionism is built on the work of early abolitionists like Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, and Ida B. Wells, as well as modern abolitionists like Angela Davis, Freema Rashid, David Stovall, Bettina Love, and Miriam Kaba. We're especially moved by Miriam Kaba, who teaches that the work must begin with ourselves and be done in community with those most affected by dehumanization. The Abolitionist Working Group is seeking to abolish the beliefs, practices, and policies that harm children, like suspension, school-based policing, and expulsion. We seek to imagine a world where we engage in restorative and communal responses to harm. This work goes beyond cultural competence and anti-racism. It's the restructuring of schools to practice love, care, and support of Black and Brown children. Our understanding has been informed by the feedback from our January session with our thought partners, Drs. David Stovall, Crystal T. Lara, and Freema Rashid, our own reading on abolitionism, and conversations with the Abolitionist Leadership Working Group at CSU East Bay. Our thought partners have impressed upon us the need to consider the preparation of educational leaders and the support they'll need to face the inevitable blowback that will surely come when the needs of Black and Brown children are centered in a school system that was not intended for them. Our guests today are here to talk about that work, what it might look like, how we might want to move differently in our program, and to fill in our blind spots. The Working Group on Abolitionist Leadership, a collective of CSU East Bay Department of Educational Leadership faculty, alumni, and students from across all of our programs, will take up the feedback from our thought partners and help plan our next steps. I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Eric Haas once again.
Thank you, Mari. So I have the pleasure of introducing our first presenter today, Jessi Fernandez. And so I'm going to first spotlight him for everyone. And then let me pull up some of my notes. So I want to just start by saying, before I read a little bit from Jessi's bio, is that I met him when we are both now volunteering on Tuesday mornings at Homies Empowerment in East Oakland. And I would catch over the last 6-8 months little snippets of things that Jessi would say as we'd pass with boxes full of food or whatever we were doing. But more recently, I had a chance to get to know him a little better, and I was blown away, super impressed by his wisdom and experience for someone who was well less than half my age. So I'm thrilled that he can be here tonight to speak with us, and I wanted to read just a little bit from his bio. So Jessi is a proud leader among his formerly incarcerated comrades. He currently is an undergraduate student researcher at UC Berkeley, majoring in sociology. Growing up with childhood trauma, lack of social support, and his positionality negatively impacted the way he navigated life. He's witnessed family and friends find their demise by the violence of others. Bullets have missed him as he saw friends die. So Mr. Fernandez currently advocates for marginalized people of color on campus, focusing on mental health support and peer support. Additionally, he is a Berkeley Underground Scholar where he engages the UC Berkeley community openly about his formerly incarcerated status to help demystify the pathways to success at Cal. Prior to transferring to Berkeley, he was the educational liaison in the education department at Homeboys Industries, the world's largest gang rehabilitation and reentry program in the world, which I believe its home base is in LA. Mr. Fernandez plans to earn a PhD in sociology. I can't wait until he does, which he will use to empower his community as a college professor while also addressing and eradicating the normalized conditions of structural institutions. Mr. Fernandez chose long ago to help his community pull themselves out of violence, as well as break the cycle of incarceration through education, and he has dedicated his life to making that happen. I'm thrilled to introduce Jessi Fernandez. Jessi?
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good evening, everybody. Many blessings to everybody. Thank you for allowing me to come and share space with everybody. I think it's important for me to, pay homage to all the folks that have been doing this line of work for many years, before, and that will continue this work after us, So I want to, take the time to acknowledge them and for all those that lost their lives doing this kind of work. I would like to talk a little bit briefly about my narrative, because I think it's essential for the basis of the line of work that many of us do, and what empowers and fuels us, So just briefly, growing up, I grew up in a dysfunctional household. I lost my mother at the age of 10. I lost my grandmother right after, so my house consisted of just me, my brother, and my dad. My dad was always working. He was never home. So I was embraced by fellow individuals in my community where gang members, and they embraced me as older brothers and older sisters. And I joined the gang at the age of 13. And I had the pursuits of being a drug dealer, and a lot of this led to incarceration. And in in retrospect, now that I look back, like I always think like how crazy it is that I'm still alive because of all the things that I have endured and had I've gone through, Um, I lost close friends of mine in 2015, and I lost two brothers in 2015. In the beginning of 2015, I lost a real close relative of mine. And in the end of 2015, I lost another brother of mine. Throughout that whole year, I was losing friends. And in 2012, I had came across an individual. His name is Father Greg Boyle over at Homeboy Industries. And he embraced me. He gave me a job, but I was still stuck in that lifestyle. And I became incarcerated all over again. In 2016, upon my release, I went back to Homeboy Industries, and I just sat in the office of Father Greg, and I started crying because I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. I know that I wanted to get my driver's license, but I couldn't because I had about $7,000 in tickets, and I didn't know where to start to go to college. So they helped me get my license. I got my license, and it was time to try to get myself into college, but I didn't know how to do none of the process. And they told me that I'm gonna have to talk to this crazy white girl, and I didn't know who that was. And all my experiences with white complected individuals have always been wrong. They always were either my DAs or my public defenders, and most of the time they were incarcerating me. So often my experiences were not good. And I met Brittany Morgan over at Homeboy Industries, and she helped me out with this whole educational process. I had gone in there with a high school diploma, and she enrolled me into a community college. And I didn't know what I was doing. I just went in hopes that I would be able to get some money because they told me you go to school, you get some money. And I was always trying to help out for the rent. And yeah, she helped me out. And before you know it, I passed my first semester with all A's, and she told me, "You're smart. You just don't have faith in yourself." But it was because my whole growing up, all my educational experience they're always negative. The only good and positive educational experience I ever had was when I would go to school. I would always go to the nurse's office because the nurse's office, there was usually an little older Hispanic lady embracing me, and nurturing me. And those are the things that I liked at home. And when I passed my semester, she told me, have you ever thought about studying abroad? And I said, I don't know what that is. The first thing that came into my mind, I don't know if y'all seen the movie Taken. Thought I was gonna go somewhere and I was gonna get kidnapped. So I was like, I'm a gang member tattooed from LA. It's not gonna happen. But she helped me raise $10,000 to make that happen. And before you know it, I was studying abroad in Oxford, England. Something that usually doesn't happen for individuals that come from my background. So this opened my eyes now that I have this opportunity to travel across the country. I always thought people with money were the only ones able to do it. And yeah, I studied abroad in Oxford, England, and I got all A's 4.0, and I came back and I used all my things that I learned in studying abroad, and I brought it back to my community, and I showed them that education can do this for you, if you just give it a shot. And I graduated in 2019, and I did not know what I wanted to do with myself. I was a valedictorian at my community college, and I had inspirations of one day becoming a professor, but I didn't know how that was going to look like for me. And this is a pivotal moment for my life because I got accepted to UC Berkeley, where I'm at now. Not a lot of individuals from my background get that opportunity. And when I started community college, I wasn't receiving no help from my community college. It was from my community. That's the individuals that were helping me out. Homeboy Industries was helping me out for individuals that have incarceration experiences. So how do we create space for all students and not just certain students? Your traditional students. Because I'm far from a traditional student. You know, and how can we make it inclusive for all students? When I was incarcerated, it was hard to get programming for education, to take college classes, and it would just make me more furious. Like, why isn't it accessible to everybody? You want to say that it's accessible to everybody, but we're not including everybody, our brothers and sisters that are incarcerated. So how can we make that possible? Currently at in Cal and underground scholars, we're working with the admissions office to try to have paper applications for folks that are incarcerated that have met their UC requirements, that are anticipating or want to pursue prior incarceration to a UC system. So those are the things that we got to take initiative and make it inclusive for everybody, not just some. How do we vision a world where it's not just versus us versus them? It's all of us, right? Because all of our systems were imagined once, and now we see them as a way, but at one point they didn't exist. So how do we question the norm? How what are the ideal practices that are we taking to create this space for everybody? Making sure that all of the students are heard and given positions of leadership, and they're being paid for their experiential knowledge. you know when you ask all these questions, is it important that you bring the students in these spaces and allow them to voice themselves, because these are the individuals that are being impacted by a lot of the policies and a lot of the things that are set in stone, without having them at the table and allowing them to voice themselves. So it is important, that we work on towards this framework that we see of making it accessible for everybody. And currently we're working on with the UC admissions and professors to start a BA program in prison.